Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there and welcome to the program, it being February 15. Yeah. It's a Wednesday here. The wind's blowing. Saying it's going to be blowing a lot more later in the afternoon. My favorite headline of the day was in the New York Times. It says, "For society's sake, have more sex." We'll get back to the article a little bit because it's a serious article. My favorite article is in the sports section of the New York Times, and I just want to share it with those of you who have not seen it. It's about a former baseball player. Actually, the last time he played ball was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had a 2-year deal with the Pirates. And it ended, I think, and I don't know if I have the date lines right, 2017, maybe. And his name is John Jaso. He was a first baseman. And I guess if you were one of the few people still watching Pirates games, he was visible by his long dreadlocks. And he's not black, I don't believe. Doesn't appear to be. But he's long dreadlocks. And this story tells about what he's been doing since he left the Pirates. And he left the Pirates, and he was set to become a free agent. And he didn't. He walked away. And in the years before he walked away, he found himself wistfully looking for sailboats. He didn't know how to sail one, but he had in his mind that he wanted to. And he found the boat, finally, in 2014. And he was, at the time, I believe he was with I don't know. He bounced around. I don't know how great a player he was. But the fact is it said that throughout his career, he probably pulled in about $17 million. He was 30 years old when his deal with the Pirates was up. And he just decided, hell, I got all this money. I wanna learn how to sail. And so he did. He walked away. Now, it's an unusual story because not many in our culture, especially at that young an age, say, whoa, I did it. I got all this money. I don't have to do this anymore. I don't need any more. I'll quit now and just enjoy life. That is such an un-American thing to do. I think, we believe you should work, and get more. And he says he found Major League Baseball to be unfulfilling, although he is so grateful to it. He says this: baseball set me up for life. I loved it. I respect it. But it was part of this culture of consumerism and overconsumption that really began to weigh heavily on me. Even when I retired, people said, you might be walking away from millions of dollars. But I'd already made millions of dollars. Why do we always have to have more? More. Now, to me, that is so wise and radical and un-American. So he read everything there was to about boating. He took classes in diesel motor mechanics, installed solar panels on his boat, and a wind generator. He devoured YouTube videos, realizing that if anything goes wrong and you're the guy on the boat in the middle of the ocean, then you're the guy who's got to know how to fix it. And then after he learned how to do all of that, he learned how to sail. And he said, when he tried to explain to people, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to sail away. There's nowhere else on the planet I'd rather be than right here. He said that's what he was thinking one day, just sitting there, not fishing, not doing anything, just sitting there in that huge expanse of ocean. He says, it's just the perfect fit for who I am. He lives, when he's on land, mostly in St. Petersburg, Florida, but 6 to 7 months of the year, he is on his boat. And he says, when you're sailing, you're going back to something primitive. You're removing yourself from the material world, this concrete, electronic world, and you're returning to this sense of wonder. It's the same sense you get when you're holding a newborn baby, looking into their eyes and feeling the world disappear. Sometimes it's easy to forget that we all come from the same place. When you're out there on the water, you remember. It's a gentle soul, a good soul, I think. And the only other thing it says here about him that I thought was interesting, he is... Wait, I'm confused. I thought he was a first baseman. Yeah. But then it says also in the article that he caught Felix Hernandez's 2012 perfect game for the Seattle Mariners. How is a first baseman a catcher? He caught Felix Hernandez's 2012 perfect game for the Seattle Mariners. There hasn't been one in Major League Baseball since. Oh, it says so right here. In his 9-year career, he was traded 3 times, switched to first base from catcher. Okay. But he's the last catcher to have caught a perfect game. And who knows where he is now, but the odds are he's on the water someplace. He's sailed his boat all over the place. There's something so wonderful. I mean, there's another quote from him here. I want my life to be simple. And it doesn't get simpler than being on a boat, sailboat. You know, I think he is representative of, he's like my son's age. And that generation, a lot of people in that generation seem really turned off by exactly what he was turned off by the overconsumption. These are, that's why, they shop at Goodwill, they recycle, they don't feel they have to have new everything, or they're just into just keeping it simple. And I it's, again, that is like radical, because if we all did that, our consumer economy would collapse. We have been trained and are constantly manipulated to keep getting money so that you can spend that money, so you can buy stuff you don't need, but stuff that we'll promise will make you happy and fulfilled and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's that rat race. And to read of this young man just saying, I did it. I mean, I did it. I don't have to do this. I don't have to be the hamster on a wheel. I can get off. So I like that. I was walking my dog the other day, and I must have been like in November. I saw signs that were tacked to all the telephone poles in my neighborhood. And, you know, they were put in plastic and tacked so that they would withstand the weather. And it was an entrepreneur. It was, I thought, somebody's trying to, and they're still up. They're all over. I pass them all the time. And I feel so sorry for this person. When I first saw the signs, I thought, good for you. I mean, this is getting ahead of the game, because the headline in big letters on these signs, it says, snow is coming. And then there's a picture of some poor soul trying to shovel out his car, which is, you know, under 10 feet of snow. And it says, snow is coming. Don't wait until it's too late. Dependable, affordable, experienced shoveling and removal. So here's a guy who thought, I'm gonna make me some money this winter, and I'll get people. And I thought, you know, good for you. And then it turns out that his whole premise was wrong. Snow didn't come. Snow didn't come. This is the most snowless winter, I don't know this for sure, that I can remember. Snow didn't come. And he hasn't taken them down. They're all over. Now they seem to be sort of more like litter and mocking, because spring is coming. Flowers are coming up, and the snow never came. And I feel for this guy. I'm sure he never thought for a minute that putting up a sign in November that snow is coming would prove to be untrue. So anyway, there's that. Balloons. I just want to do a quick thing on balloons, because we got to back away. I mean, the U.S. has got to back away from this shooting down every balloon in the sky. This is, as we, you know, suspect, getting silly and inviting jokes and ridicule. It's got to be stopped. In part because our skies are littered with balloons. Big, high balloons. Military balloons, government agencies balloons, and it's not just ours. Countries all over the world put these balloons up in the air. Independent researchers, hobbyists throw their balloons in as well. I mean, just the National Weather Service puts about 60,000 high flying. I mean, they're up there, way up there, high flying balloons up. The National Weather Service So that's part of the government. So you got the government on one hand not knowing what the government on the other hand is doing. Is anyone keeping track? How can you possibly keep track? National Weather Service alone, 60,000 of these things floating around up there. NASA has put thousands of balloons up as well. They fly in that same range, 22 miles high. The weather balloons are up higher. No, about the same. I guess they're 20 high too. And the weather balloons are up there, not to impede air traffic, which was the supposed reason we shot down some of those others, but because they're there to improve the safety of people who are flying high. They are there to observe quickly changing weather patterns so that pilots can be alerted in real time to possible violent storms. So, I mean, my God, anyway, I don't know. We can't possibly. Apparently, we've upped the military now is supposed to be watching for this stuff more, but there's no way of identifying all these things. No way. I mean, and if there is a way, why bother? I mean, it could be very time consuming. And they're saying now that all we're going to do is be chasing paralyzing waves of false alarms. So, just saying. And these, like the balloons NASA puts up there, they carry payloads of up to 4 tons. So, you don't want to shoot down something like that overlay. I mean, and there are safety issues, but I don't know. Again, I would suspect that the one hand doesn't know what the other hand is up to. Bob writes, as you mentioned the day after the Super Bowl about those ads promoting Jesus, I don't know if Jesus Christ himself would positively respond to seeing the "He Gets Us" Super Bowl ads that claim to do a good service to his name. Well, Bob, I think you and I both know Jesus would be appalled. However, Bob writes, as you once mentioned in the past, it would be some sight to see Jesus come back to earth and see what these self-proclaimed Christians have done recently in his name. Imagine what Trump has up his sleeve if he puts out presidential ads during next year's Super Bowl to kick off the 20. Well, Trump could put out ads and use that same line. He gets us. Donald Trump gets us. He could rip off their Jesus' slogan, since apparently some of his followers think he's the Messiah. So there you go. He gets us. Oh my God. Okay, so what else we got here? Oh, tweet. There's just so much happening, and it's no reason we're all feeling so distracted and freaked all the time. I mean, our attention is. I think the baseball player has it right. We need to tune out if we want to live. If we want to live, a fulfilling life, there has to be more care given to how we navigate, I would think. So here's a tweet I saw. Unbelievable. It was put up by a young woman named Emma Riddle. She says this. This was from yesterday, or the day before, I guess is when I saw it. 14 months ago, I had to evacuate from Oxford High School when a 15-year-old opened fire and killed 4 of my classmates and injured 7 more. Tonight, I'm sitting under my desk at Michigan State University, once again texting everyone, I love you. When will this end? So you're seeing so many of these kinds of stories about young people experiencing these traumatic mass killings in schools more than once in their school experience, more than once. If the scope of this insane crisis is not already apparent, it's quite clear that when a number, God knows, hundreds of American young people could have written something like this. I suspect this Emma Riddle was a student at that high school. I remember that because it was near, was it in Ann Arbor? It was near, I know where my brother lives. And that kid, his parents are now have been indicted. That case, he killed a whole bunch of people, right? That was her school. And then she, of course, goes upstate a little bit to Lansing, Michigan State, and bango. Literally. Insanity. We live in a crazy place, in case you hadn't known. And so anyone who's comfortable in this crazy place is somebody that I would keep an eye on. I mean it. It's like I remember as a young person, a troubled young person, thinking that a reasonable response to much of life was depression. I remember thinking that. Well, yeah, I'm depressed. I remember thinking, why wouldn't a person be depressed? And that was in the 60s. And so we hear increasingly about young people, and studies. This one that was out the other day about young girls in this country recording just unbelievable, off-the-charts levels of sadness, depression, suicidal thoughts. We are a sick culture. A sick culture. And one that is not humane, quite clearly. It's just not. And so we hear of, the people dying of, these deaths of despair for people whose lives just don't make sense anymore. That's hit a lot of white guys, I guess. And all of this evidence of almost a universal depression. And what are we doing? Nothing. We're doing nothing. We send our kids to school, they get blown away. And if they don't get blown away, we make sure they get traumatized anyway because we prepare them to get blown away. And every American student has had that experience. The shooter drills. I can't imagine how traumatizing that is. And then with social media, can you imagine trying teenage years, trying to, go from, navigate puberty and go from childhood into, a semblance of young adulthood and finding your way and getting your feet under you, and yet having to deal with constant surveillance, essentially, of everything you do, of people writing things about you and sharing them, of pictures taken, of this. So people who study all this, there's absolutely no question of an association between the use of social media and the dramatic increase in suicidal behavior and depression. And the young people are the most vulnerable of all. I can't imagine. I really can't imagine. So the study has showed that nearly 3 in 5 teenage girls in 2021 felt persistent sadness, double the rate of boys. And of course, the pandemic, the isolation, the not being able to be in school and all of that turns out to have been a big mistake for mental health. I don't know. And so we get back to this, for society's sake, have more sex. And it turns out, this article says that America is in the midst of a loneliness epidemic. Almost every demographic group, and whether people are single, whether they're married, whether they're rich, poor, young, old, they are having less sex, Americans, than they have ever had at any other point since, I guess, we've been bothering people and saying, hey, so how much you get? Lowest rates we know of. Young people, people like me, yeah, so, if you're not having sex in your 70s, so what? But apparently it's better if you are. But it says here that not only are men and women marching together into sexlessness, they're also on the same road to loneliness. And again, young women leading the way. So I don't know. We have proven that we're absolutely clueless as a culture, again, about how to respond to mental health crises and mental health issues. We send police and they kill people. We don't have a clue. Our jails are populated by people with mental health issues. Our streets filled with homeless people with mental health issues. We do not deal with this, and our children are suffering. And we don't respond. I don't know. They do not know. So remember that. I'm changing subjects. I'm hopping around here today. Do you remember that outrageous billboard in, I think it was Armstrong County or Beaver County? It was one of those places that voted 90% for Trump, right to the north of Pittsburgh. It's so Trumpian, it's unbelievable. And there's a guy who has these billboards, electronic billboards, putting just flat out anti-gay, anti-Semitic, pro-Nazi stuff out. And while I believe he's taken down the swastika one, everything else is still up as far as I know. So in response, some guy, a Democrat, Western, let me see, chairman of the Armstrong County Democratic Committee. His name is Chuck Pascal. He took out a billboard. And his billboard was put up. And it said, let me get the billboard. No matter what you look like, who you love, what your religion, where you're from, you've got a friend in Armstrong County. And one friend, because the others will kill you dead, apparently. No, you've got a friend. I used to didn't the license plates in Pennsylvania say you've got a friend in Pennsylvania? They don't say that anymore, do they? See how observant I am. I always thought it was the weakest, lamest. You know, if you read it, you know, literally, whatever. So this guy spends his own money to stick this welcoming, inclusive billboard up. And guess what? Guess what? You can't make it up. It's been taken down. It's been removed by, I guess, the company that owns the billboard and leases it out. They have taken it down because they say it attracts controversy. The one that is spewing hate against people because of race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and all of that stuff, and putting swastikas out there, that one has not apparently been taken down for attracting controversy. The one that says, I don't care what religion, what race or ethnicity you are, you have a friend in Armstrong County. Well, I guess you don't. It has been taken down. The guy who paid for it said, I'm not sure in what universe the message on that billboard is objectionable. But you know what? He nailed it. He says, this is right-wing cancel culture. They who are always arguing about cancel culture, that in Armstrong County, this is objectionable. And apparently the guy whose land it's on, who doesn't own the billboard, received threatening emails and death threats. Feared for his life. So there we go. And that allows them to take it down. Incredible. So that was taken down Sunday. And the people who own the billboard, called Huntington Billboards, and Pascal says, the guy who put up the welcome sign, he's saying they are complicit in bigotry and intolerance. They have characterized a welcoming and positive message as objectionable and negative, and displayed despicable complicity and cowardice in canceling the contract. So, meanwhile, the other billboard, the racist, transphobic, anti-Semitic, anti-gay, blah, 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 that's still up. Can you imagine? I'd steer clear of Armstrong County. And you know another county I'd steer clear of? Beaver. Is Beaver County the one with the cracking plant? Have you seen video of what that plant does on a regular basis with these flares it puts up? I mean, the sky is red for miles around. And that's just normal, I guess, normal operation. Unbelievable. But hey, who cares? Who cares if they're making plastic pellets, which will pollute everything in sight? And who cares if in the process of making the pellets, that they spew pollution all over the place, there's jobs to be had. Never mind sickness, illness down the road, environmental catastrophe. There's jobs, and this is America. Insanity. So I want to apologize for the other day actually giving even a moment's, I said, I'm seeing all these things on social media about the dangers from the East Palestine train derailment and wondering if there's a cover-up, if this is analogous to Chernobyl and this and that. I should not have done that because I was repeating these fear-mongering, unproven. And I said, I think at the time, I'd sure like to see more, reporting I can trust on just how serious this thing is, because I do think it's serious. I do think it's serious. And if I lived there, I'd get the holy hell out if I had the means. So I have been reading a lot more about it. And there are a lot of fish have been killed. There is toxins that have spilled into the Ohio River. And they are, I guess, continuing to, let me just find if I actually have some, of course not. There have been reports of, dead chickens in people's backyards, dead animals. And remember those, it was years ago that we were introduced, at least I never saw him before, a scary looking bizarro creature called a hellbender. It's like a flat salamander-y looking thing that lives in wetlands and in the waters, I think, and they can grow to like 2 feet long. Google it and you'll see a picture. They're scary looking creatures. But apparently they've been endangered in Ohio, right where the spill is, and there have been an effort by environmentalists to protect this area so the hellbenders can, regroup. And they've even been taking their eggs and rearing hellbenders in captivity and then reintroducing them into the wild. And they're freaking out because one of the sites where about 250 of these creatures have been released to be released back into nature is exactly where the spill happened. But the fact that there's still an odor in the air, the fact that, and when you see quotes by, here's a guy who was on the Chemical Safety Board. That's a supposedly, I don't know if is that governmental or, he was on the Chemical Safety Board. He said the volume is just stupendous of the amount of stuff that was spilled and then burned off. He says it just is horrific to think about how much was released and how much was purposefully burned. And he says this is a significant enough event that it could merit a presidential commission along the lines of the one that was created after the Deepwater Horizon explosion. And he served on that. There was a presidential commission that he served on, which is why he thinks this thing is every bit as bad. And with chemical spills, the thing is the threats to human health can linger long after the site's been cleaned up, everything looks normal, and everybody goes away. And the most mind-blowing stuff about it is that you had this train, 150 of its, it had 150 cars, long train, 50 of which were derailed. 20 of those were carrying hazardous materials. But it turns out not hazardous enough, because as Governor DeWine found out, what this train was carrying was not by law categorized as a high hazardous train, which meant that Norfolk Southern had absolutely no requirement to give the governor or any officials of the areas that it was passing through any notification that dangerous chemicals were coming through. Now, I believe that the Trump administration canceled, took down, pulled back regulations that the Obama administration had put in regard to exactly this. Because, as usual, Republicans are all about making the rich richer and killing people. The little people, some of them die. That's too bad. Fish, hellbenders, who gives a damn about any of that? They did not have to declare that that train was a potential hazard. Well, you tell me, was it? Yes, it turns out it was a potential hazard. So how come the law doesn't see it that way? That's got to change. And also the Trump administration rolled back regulations that, again, the Obama administration had put on, requiring braking system upgrades on these trains carrying hazardous materials. If both of those things had still been in place, maybe this would not have happened. I don't know. It's really just extraordinary malfeasance. And they're trying to blame. So I see they're blaming Pete Buttigieg. Look, the guy, he's dealing with, this is always what happens to Democratic administrations. They spend their entire time literally cleaning up the mess caused by the Republican administration that precedes them. Often the Republicans will have left the economy in tatters. They have taken out and rolled back all kinds of environmental protections, worker protections, civil protections, all that kind of stuff. And they come back, when the Democrats get in, it's like they don't even know where to start. Mary's asking a question I was wondering, and I still haven't seen anybody in all the writing I've done. I have asked the question, what was the destination of this train? Does anybody know that? Because I have not seen that. Because Mary's asking, was it headed to the cracker plant? Maybe. I wondered the same thing. Because that, here, wait a minute. Mary just sent me this. The route was from Madison, Illinois to Conway, Pennsylvania. And it turns out Conway is about 8 miles from the cracker plant. Huh. Well, what's in Conway? What's in Conway? Geez, I wouldn't want to be living around in that area. My God, you guys. And they're all Trumpers. Well, not all of you. I don't know. Geez. You would think of all people, they would be like saying, will you do someththem to regulate this properly to protect the people who live here? It's one thing to give them a job. It's another thing to kill their families. God. Incredible. Okay, time for some good news. I mean, interesting news, I think. There are more people of color in the Congress than ever before. And in fact, the district I'm in is represented for the first time, not by a white man, which has been the case since I came here, but by a young black woman. And that is not unusual, as it turns out, because half of the 60 black legislators elected to Congress this year represent districts or states that are mostly white. And that is true of Summer Lee. This is a definitely majority white congressional district that elected this black woman. And that is happening more and more and more, just like, the Barack Obama's presidency was one of those kinds of the same kind of thing. But for decades, we used to think you'd see an African American and you would make the assumption that they were elected from a majority black district. They were elected from, the inner city and that kind of thing. And there was truth in that to a large part, but not anymore, which is good news. That's a good sign, right? Got to throw a little good news in every once in a while. I have a caller. Hello.
Hello, Lynn.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to call you to tell you about Conrail, is what Conway is, and it's railroad tracks going through there, and all the big stuff goes through there. So, yeah, it's a railroad there. I don't know what East.
Oh, so it wasn't a final destination.
No, I don't know. It might still go there to the cracker plant. I don't know, but all kind of train cars come through there. It's a big hub, like for railroad and things like that.
Okay.
But what I wanted to say about this thing with the thing, it's terrible and everything. But Beaver County used to have an oil refinery in Freedom right in that area, that Conrail and Conway. And it used to go through there, and you have to hold your breath because it smelled like a giant fart. It was just terrible. And that was there for years. And my aunt, my wife's aunt and uncle lived in Freedom, and they exposed that for years, and they all lived into their 90s. So,
okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, I agree it ain't no good for you, but that's just a weird thing. But
it turns out giant farts won't kill you.
You're right. But, when an oil
smell doesn't
stink, then you had all the mills, J&L, and all the mills and stuff. It would light the sky up. They think this is bad. I remember there was a movie theater there. You could watch a drive-in movie theater. You'd see all this, the whole sky light up, like down from you, where you're watching the movie. It looked like a damn volcano let loose with that steel mill shit and all that. So,
so it's pretty much, it's back again. It's back again with the cracker plant. So people are used to seeing their skies, just.
It really doesn't look that bad around it. It has a little smell to it, but I'm not too far. I'm not close to it, so. But yeah, I don't understand. I think there's a bunch of lunkheads that run the whole opera because this cracker plant is not making. We are not getting property tax for it. Nothing, and they're not
what?
Making. No,
are you kidding? They gave them. They
build them roads and everything. It's unbelievable. It's like just a boondoggy or whatever you want to call it, boondoggy.
It's an outrage.
It's just
outrage,
horrible. And it'll close in 5 years because that's what they do. They come in and take. You know what I mean? It's just nuts. You got these commissioners that are idiots, and I don't know.
Yeah. God help us.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the info.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. And Mary did some writing too. She says, Conway is basically a rail depot. If you're going to get goods delivered by train in Beaver County. So, CBS News reported 5 of the cars were carrying vinyl chloride, a gas used to make plastic. Well, all right. The plot thickens because the cracker plant is making plastic. Oh, God. You stop and think about this. We keep making this stuff, and at the same time, we're told, we're going to get rid of plastic bags because they're a danger. We got to get rid of plastic. I mean, there's part of me that, tries to avoid plastic containers or things that if it can be recycled, that's good. But, we're told plastic bags are going to be out. I try not to ever use them. I try to bring my own bags and stuff like that. But, and yet at the same time, we got this humongous, have you seen how big that plant is? And it's not paying any taxes? That's beyond belief. Beyond belief. No, we live in a plutocracy. We live in a country that is for the rich. The laws all benefit the rich, and when the rich break the laws, they don't encounter the same kind of consequence that the little people do, the little people who pay the taxes. And there's so many people are mad at Democrats. Democrats are nowhere near the major malefactors here. Nowhere near it. God. Okay, hang in there. Gigi Rice Conway is home to a huge a huge switchyard. And then, so trains, different freight cars, freight trains are made up there, right? They come in and then they get hooked into other, I don't know. And Gigi says, I've not heard the ultimate destination for the chemicals which derailed in East Palestine. So the fact that it ended up in Conway does not necessarily, which happens to be near the pat. Who the hell knows? But why isn't that information known? I mean, that would be something that Norfolk Southern would know, but maybe they consider that proprietary information that's none of our business. Except, I think it's our business when everything's gone to hell in a handbasket because of the transportation of this stuff. I've got some stuff here, but that looks depressing. I'm not going there. So I'm going to see if I have something else I can talk to you about. And let me just quickly run through my stuff here because I don't want to leave you with something that depressing. Oh, somebody sent me a Wendy Bell. This is not funny, but it's just to remind you that in our midst, and literally blocks from where I sit now, because Wendy and I are in the same neighborhood, is Wendy Bell, who has become a leading right-wing crackpot. This is no surprise, disseminator of hate. So Wendy Bell tweeted before the Super Bowl, but during the pregame stuff. And that's when, they had the all-female the all-female pilots. I mentioned some of this yesterday. There are a lot of black people being honored and stuff like that, right? Right. And I think maybe there were some openly gay people that were obvious or whatever. Here's Wendy Bell. The over-the-top virtue signaling of this Super Bowl is an embarrassment. And we're not even at the coin toss. When do you suppose we'll see a straight white man featured anywhere? You won't. Whoa! Is Stapleton who did is he a straight white man? Straight white man, that has to, what is she frigging, oh God. I mean, I'm just saying, you remember when she was fired from TAE, it was because of racial insensitivity and how did she win a case for racial discrimination? She felt she was being discriminated against for being white or something. I mean, she is such a piece of work. Wow, what an ugly, awful person. How do people like that even function? I can't imagine. Okay, so people are being told, by the way, who are living in East Palestine, to drink bottled water. What does that tell you? Doesn't exactly inspire. But there are so many questions, and the Washington Post reporting today is that, it's been 11 days since that train derailed, and there are still a ton of questions that are not answered about the effects. And I also tell me I didn't see this, I saw a picture of people still doing cleanup at the site where the train derailed and that huge fire was set. And I saw a picture from like a day or two ago, and they weren't wearing protective gear. I mean, would you go? I mean, they had burned off all of this noxious, toxic, dangerous stuff, and then people are sent in to clean it up, and, they're wearing just regular work clothes. That doesn't seem right. And this is the one that says, water officials are tracking a large plume of contamination flowing down the Ohio River. Cleanup crews are excavating a, quote, grossly contaminated 1,000-foot area around the tracks. And they weren't wearing, I am not kidding you, so the residents are feeling like nobody's really telling them what they need to know. So the answer to questions like how much Has the ground been contaminated? Has the water been contaminated? Has the air been contaminated? Is it safe to live there, to grow a vegetable garden there? They say that the plume of toxicity that is flowing down the Ohio River is obviously being diluted as it moves down. But again, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I wonder if DeWine, who's a Republican, is like rethinking how in the past he was quite quick, I'm sure, to suggest that businesses were over-regulated. And now he's saying, what? They weren't required to inform us? Here's somebody from Penn Environment saying it's really a toxic soup. It feels a little bit like a sci-fi movie when you're told that one of the byproducts being released is an agent that we used against our enemies in World War I. Oh, God. And the thing is, though, the EPA says no concerning toxicity levels have been... And the thing is now, this is where you erode enough trust in governmental agencies, and they are unable to provide comfort. Nobody believes anything anybody says. And that's where we're at. And again, thank you to those who wanted us to believe that the news was fake and our institutions were corrupted, and they're still at it. All right, that's it. I was not going to end on a depressing note. That's depressing. But it's going to be 102 or something today, and then it's going to drop, and I have to go out and witness this meteorological chaos and enjoy the warmer temperatures, I must admit. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.